Vols take care of business. Well, I guess I'll introduce these guys. I was away for a week. I'm out of practice. We got Vince Farrar right here. We got Will West right here. We got former D1 basketball player and Vol coach Mark Pankratz right here. Jimmy Himes right there, and we got one more waiting in the wings. Now, Tennessee won their 25th game of the year yesterday on Senior Day, 75-65, the win over South Carolina. A bounce-back win after the loss at Ole Miss, which Vince, Jimmy, we did something on the Sports Source Digital Network this week where we taped it on Wednesday and said, not going to be a surprise if you go down to Ole Miss and lose, coming off an emotional win here. So that was not shocking. Still, got things back in working order there in the second half, put them away by 10. Mark, your takeaways on yesterday's victory.
I think from an X's and O's standpoint, we are who we are, right? Defensively, we're going to be pretty dominant on that side. I was most excited about the personnel that showed up yesterday. Jamai Mashack, he's going to be in the game a lot because of his defensive prowess, has 15 points, knocks down another three-point shot. Cade Phillips, the way that he stepped up with Akbar being in foul trouble was big. And then Justin Gainey continues to be a guy that can give us some firepower offensively. So those guys stepping up despite Ziegler being in foul trouble and Akbar. We talked all year about the lack of depth. Those three guys showing some depth on the offensive end was enlightening for the NCAA tournament.
I thought it was encouraging that Tennessee won without Ziegler playing that well. He didn't score until the last 2 minutes. He was 0 for 2 from the field. He missed his first 3 free throw attempts. And Barnes benched him a couple of times because he got frustrated with him. He fouled a three-point shooter. But they won anyway. Yeah. And they did that against Florida, too, where they won anyway. So it tells me that if he gets in foul trouble postseason, Tennessee still is good enough to overcome that, where I'm not sure going into the year if I would have felt that way.
Takeaways.
Yeah, I think it was positive, the points in the paint. South Carolina was willing to go in there, and they were tough, and they made some tough shots, and they had – Pringle was kind of tough to handle, but they still had success inside. Those alley-oops to Cade Phillips are terrific, obviously career high for him. Ziegler still did some things, obviously has such a great connection with Phillips and Akpara, at the rim and those lobs. So Gainey continues to drive the lane. I love when Chaz Lanier is trying to take guys off the dribble and open up the two-point game and the attack at the rim. Those are all things that are very much positives for Tennessee. Overall, though, I didn't think it was an overly inspiring performance. I thought they just kind of got through it and did what they need to. Still a little worried about the regular slow starts and having to turn things on in the second half.
Yeah, I'm going to urinate right in the Cheerios because I did not think that was a great performance for Tennessee. You got to win because you played the worst team in the SEC. That's a bad basketball team. You beat them by 10, which is nice. You blew a lead again, which is concerning to me. I think we're seeing a recipe to cause problems for Tennessee with Akpara, and especially in these last 2 games. That's concerning to me. And I also think, Kai is not a great shooter, so they have to figure out, but he's a great distributor. I just think I don't see people who are aggressive enough with the basketball in the half court. I don't understand when you're kind of running, when you're playing in space and you're putting up points. Tennessee got to like that 10-minute mark. They're on pace for 80 points. And then Rick Barnes tells Kai to slow it down, be more patient, look for that. And they go on a large scoring draft in the final 10 minutes. I was drought in the final 10 minutes of the first half. Yeah. It's just whenever I see that, I'm like, okay, you won, but there's winning's a great deodorant. The problems are there, and I don't know that if you're playing a better team, you didn't lose 2 in a row yesterday.
First of all, I'd like the waiter to take the Cheerios back. Second of all, I chalk some of that. Again, I wasn't surprised in the least about the Ole Miss loss, again, because of the situation. You saw Auburn do the exact same thing. They win the SEC, and then they go and get crushed on the road against A&M. It happens. Yesterday, I chalked some of that up to it's emotional senior day. I think they always have an issue on senior day. I just think you come out, especially when you got 7 guys out there, 6 of them who play. I think that's part of it. Now, are you right about their flaws? Yeah, we've seen their flaws all year. My thing is, though, if we were doing this show in Tuscaloosa, you'd be sitting there slicing and dicing Alabama to bits and pieces, don't you think? I just think we look at this team and act like they're the worst team in the world. To me, we do this with football, and I'm good with it. But basketball, I just think basketball is what it is. I look at these teams, I think if Tennessee gets the right draw and they get on a roll, they'll be fine. I'm not overly panicking about their flaws because I look across the SEC and I see flaws, just about everywhere but Auburn.
My concern is that the flaws, people are finding new ways to take advantage of them. of the flaws that this team has and that they're not learning from their mistakes. And this is a team that I think because
We're
there are
1
no
week removed
dominant
from-
teams.
We're 1 week removed from them beating Alabama, though.
Yeah, that's great. But you hit a nice last second shot, and Alabama was stupid for the last 6 minutes of the second half offensively. So it was a nice win. It's a good win. And this is going to happen in basketball. I have a concern that we're seeing teams learn to exploit these flaws that we all see in Tennessee. And while they're a good team, and I love Barnes, and he's great, and he's a Hall of Famer, I have concerns that we're seeing some of these problems rear their head and maybe people are highlighting them a little bit more.
The one thing that I've not seen really much at all is Zakai getting foul trouble two of the last 3 games, right? In his career, he's not really gotten in foul trouble. He's gotten in foul trouble against Alabama, and you saw him get in foul trouble on Saturday. That's because either one, teams are starting to drive it at him more and more, knowing that they're going to put pressure on him to get fouls. Officiating may be changing as we're getting into the NCAA tournament. Yeah. That's Akbar blocking shots, getting in foul trouble. That's the concerning part for me. We are who we are at this point. I'm not overly concerned about can we make it to the Sweet 16 or Elite 8. I just think offensively, I think we slow it down at times that allow us to have those bigger lulls on the offensive end that I do think more other teams have than we give notice to because of where we're living. But this team is playing better basketball.
All right, wait a second. Let me back this up. So in the past, I've always hammered Tennessee for having the droughts. Now I'm the guy who's not putting the droughts on. I'm not noticing the droughts on other teams. We went and showed the numbers this year. Tennessee's droughts were actually fewer than the other teams in the SEC.
Yeah, I'm saying the other teams are having droughts too. I'm saying we're living in the Knoxville bubble.
Which is fair.
Yeah. So you're being negative. Yeah. Let me also say this as someone who's routinely negative. One. People who's called routinely negative. There's no such thing as negative. The truth is just the truth. There's, you can take it one way or the other. I have no problem with you saying it. I'm just pushing back a little because I think you hone in on Tennessee with a laser focus that I think we could do it with a lot of teams in the
I
SEC.
have a concern these last 3 games, teams are figuring out ways to exploit them in new and unique ways.
Gotcha.
Well, if Tennessee made the free throws, the game would have been that close.
That's true.
So that was one of the issues. They missed the front end of several 1-and-1s. They were 9 for 21 at the foul line. And Rick Barnes talked several times after the game about we could have pulled away, but we kept missing free throws. So that was a part of it. This also struck me as being interesting. South Carolina, their first 15 field goal attempts, 14 of them were threes. And they only made 2 of them.
Right.
And yet Tennessee wasn't able to really pull away much when South Carolina was having trouble putting it into the basket.
To your point about living in the Knoxville bubble, you know what they were talking about after the Duke game last night? Was they were excited that Duke had to play North Carolina close because Duke has won their last 10 ACC games by 25 points. Yeah. So Duke is having an incredible year, but they're concerned that they're not playing close enough games. On our end, I think we've learned how to overcome some adversities. We've been in a lot of one-possession basketball games late in the second half that a lot of teams throughout the country haven't had to be exposed to.
I guess I'm looking at this team and it's better than I thought it would be. They are better this year than I thought they would be. I didn't think you'd be sitting here with 6 losses on the year. I didn't think you'd win 25 games again. And by the way, let's say that very quickly. We've blown past it. Mike Wilson of the Sentinel tweeted this out yesterday. And this is the 4th straight season Tennessee's won 25 games. Before Rick Barnes got here, they had 3. Now, granted, you're playing more games these years, in this day and age. The season's longer. You've added more crap games to start, although Barnes does play a pretty good non-conference schedule typically. But 25 wins for the 4th straight year, that's an incredible achievement for this school. But I didn't think they would be this good this year, so I'm sitting here looking at them going, can they play with Alabama? Yeah. Can they play with Florida? Yeah. Can they play with Auburn? Clearly they did. Well, who else are you going to throw at them? So I get what you're saying. This sucks, this sucks, this sucks, that sucks, this sucks. I don't argue. But I think I could do that with everybody, and they've learned to play with all these teams despite their flaws.
But my concern is I think these things are easier to clean up, and I have a concern that they're getting worse. Does that make sense? The wound is opening more and more each week as we get towards the end of the season.
And as we get closer to NCAA tournament time, we start feeling like we've been down this path before, and we feel like we're having a good season, and then the rug gets pulled out because we shoot it bad, and it happens across the country. But when we've been here the last 4 years, when they've been winning 25 games, I think that's what people are starting to feel.
Well, and in the end, you're the one's going to come back and go, see? Because they're not going to win this whole thing. No. Anybody who thinks they're going to the Final Four, they're going to win this whole thing. Hey, I'll let Bob Hodge bring some cooked crow in. I'll eat the crow. He'd eat it raw. I'd eat some cooked.
Need to cook it.
But I'd happily do it. But this team's not going to win a championship. So when they do go out, you're going to be able to say, see, aha. And you're going to be right. So I'm not trying to fight you on this. I'm just thinking that it's senior day. You just finished, 25-6. Maybe cut them some slack today?
I just think this is the first Tennessee team I can remember in my life that I believe can win the whole thing because there aren't elite basketball teams
there
in
you go.
college basketball right now. But you have to fix these things if you want to get there, and there's no effort to fix those things.
Now we've got
and
to
that's concerning me.
Now we've got to the crux of it. You think they're better than I do.
Yeah.
So I think you're being negative.
Well,
you
I
think
also
I'm
just
being
think
positive.
college
Okay.
basketball's not good this year.
There we go. All right. It's garbage?
I wouldn't say garbage.
All right. When we come back, let's talk about Vol seniors and discuss Zakai Ziegler, where he ranks in Vol history in terms of popular players. Boy, last 25 years, I can only think of 2 other names that I've even put in there with it. We'll discuss that. Come on back on the Sports Source.